So Professor Zhang, you can start now.
Okay. Dear everyone, thanks very much for attending the 8th Asia Pacific Forestry Education Coordination Mechanism webinar in 2024. My name is Jialong Zhang from Southwest Forestry University in China. I'm very happy and honored to host this seminar. Today, we are pleased to invite Héctor Cisneros to give a presentation titled Challenges and Opportunities for the Promotion of Sustainability, Profitability, and Inclusion of the Forestry Sector in the Peruvian Amazon. Dr. Héctor Cisneros is a senior international consultant in environment and natural resources. He got a bachelor's degree in forestry engineering in Universidad Agraria Lima, Peru, Master of Science in Forestry in the University of Toronto, PhD in Forestry in the University of British Columbia. Dr. Cisneros' professional experience comprises technical, managerial, and institutional aspects of rural development, forestry, environmental, and social issues, acting from the public and private sectors. During the last 35 years, he has worked as a research scientist, entrepreneur, consultant, manager, and director. He has been active in forestry and forest products, natural resource management, rural development, and the environment at community, local, subnational, national, Andean, and global levels. His leadership and innovative mind has been exercised from government, private business, non-governmental organizations, and international institutions, from planning and program design to fundraising, negotiation, implementation, and supervision, as well as institutional representation. Recently, from October 2018 to March 2024, he directed USAID Pro-Bosques as chief of party, a project implemented by a consortium led by Tetra Tech International to strengthen sustainability, legality, competitiveness, and social inclusion in the forest sector in the Peruvian Amazon, contributing to the mitigation of climate change. He has published more than 20 scientific publications, mainly related to fiber research. His presentation will be about 45 minutes, 15 minutes for questions and answers. Now let's warmly welcome Dr. Héctor Cisneros.
Thank you very much, Professor. I'm honored to be here and very happy to share some thoughts on a project. By the way, all the photographs that you will see are from the Peruvian Amazon. And Susie, if you are so kind to keep on passing the slides, please. Next. Okay, sorry, the previous one. Yes, just to let you know that this presentation is based mostly in the Pro-Bosques project, sponsored by USAID and the Norwegian government. Pro-Bosques means in favor of the forests in Spanish. Next, please. And then you see the picture with all the officers and community leaders and government people because of the donation of boats for the control and oversight of the forest in the Amazon of Peru. Next, please. And these challenges and opportunities, they have to do basically with adaptability, inclusion, and sustainability. And in this presentation, I will have a short introduction, a project overview, impact and lessons learned, and some final reflections. Next, please. I apologize for this personal slide. I follow my friend Jorge Chavez. He insisted that I included this so we can give a personal touch. I'm happy to be married to Marcela 43 years ago. I have two granddaughters that are beautiful. You can see them there. A cabin in the highlands of the Amazon in Oxapampa. And I was as a teenager and very young tennis player representing Peru. This is before it became a business. And I was in the board of directors of trustees of eCraft for more than 6 years. So I've been very busy for the past 35 years in the forestry sector. And since UBC is hosting this seminar also, just wanted to say that hello to my colleagues at UBC in Vancouver. Next, please. So some background and context of the project. It had offices. The project just finished a few months ago, but we had offices in 3 regions, the 3 main regions that provide most of the timber for commercial uses. More than 60 professionals, a budget by USAID and NORAD of 25 million, duration of 5.5 years. And this was a consortium of an American company, but with participation of national NGOs and a Latin American enterprise to help us in the value added of wood. The underlying objectives is that by promoting the value of the standing forest, you actually give more value to the forest and it can defend itself from deforestation and producing greenhouse gas emissions. Next, please. Now, the Peruvian sector, as you can see in the map, the green part is basically the Amazon, and we have forest. This is about the size of Texas, or even larger than Spain or France, and this is sparsely populated. 14% of the population live there, about 10% is indigenous. It's a very rich, diverse, culturally diverse region with about 50 indigenous groups, but also a very high poverty index. There are very few, almost non-existent commercial plantations and high rates of deforestation and degradation still, basically because of low or weak governance. And to add to the complexity, we have several forest title categories, including concession for timber harvesting, protected areas, indigenous lands, non-timber forest products concessions, and local forest for small holders. And despite having 60% of the country covered by the Amazonia, it only contributes 5% to the economy of the country. In the forest sector, it's only about 1% of the gross national product. So there's a lot of room still to grow in the forestry sector in Peru. Next, please. This is a comparison of 2 important value chains in the Peruvian Amazon, where they employ about the same amount of people. And you can see that the wood value is about 1.5 billion, and coffee, it's about half of it. But in terms of value added and measured by exports, you can see that less than 10% of the wood products in Peru are exported, whereas in coffee, more than 90% is exported with high value. So as I mentioned, there is still a lot of room to improve the contribution of the forest sector to the Peruvian economy. Next, please. So this Pro-Bosques, or in favor of forest, Pro-Bosques project, it had three main components. Forest governance, basically working with the government, not only the national government, but the regional governments. But by the way, we call regions what in Canada, for instance, they call provinces. So we work together with government, the Forest Service, but also with the regional forest authorities. In the forest competitiveness component, to add value to the forest, to the wood products and non-timber products also. We work in the field with the associations and small producers. And the third component had to do with indigenous empowerment, shoulder to shoulder with community people, but also with the national forest, the national indigenous organizations in promoting a national forestry agenda. Because what we found in our baseline studies was that most of the wood mobilized in Peru comes from the indigenous lands, and not enough attention is paid to the indigenous lands in terms of wood harvesting. Then next, please. So I will concentrate on only a few key topics in each component. In component one, which is governance, the team of Pro-Bosques provided TA, technical assistance, to the Forest Service, therefore, in the regional forest authorities to design, develop, and implement a forest information system. This is a computerized system, but it's very complex because it goes all the way from forest zoning to management of forest titles, the forest planning with the management plans, the forest management itself, transportation, transformation, and commerce, all linked together to have traceability from forest to markets. So you can see the complexity because also the data had to be interoperable with 15 different government agencies, for instance, taxpayers, registration official titles, regional governments, and so on and so forth. So it's a very complex task, but the project did, I think, progress enough that it will continue and be finalized. Next one, please. Now, this system called Gestiona Forestal in Spanish, it's beyond a computerized system or technology system, because you have to work on the building blocks. You have to work, for instance, in regulatory development, because the legislation and the bylaws, they don't have all the definitions or protocols or specific decrees, for instance, for the control posts, or you have to differentiate between primary forest, secondary forest, because they have different treatments, or forest products, sorry. Then we had also to work in public budget, so it will be sustainable, the system, in an implementation plan long term, so you can actually ask the Ministry of Finance for the funding based on evidence of a good planning. The information management, all the information was disorganized, so it had to be collected, transformed, organized, synchronized, make it interoperable and registered. And finally, the project with the government authorities had an army of different developers, informatic developers and programmers for process mapping, internal and field testing, and actually put forward the system. Next, please. You can see the challenge and the task that the officers had. They not only they had to control and supervise different sources of wood, but you can see the way in which the permits were piled up in many different offices. So everything had to be digitized and scanned to feed the system and make it work where many previous attempts had failed. Next one, please. So these are just photographs of these large barges in which you transport wood. And the wood years ago had much larger diameters. The diameters have become smaller, and the number of species being used larger. Next one. And of course, for wood that can be floated, this floating barges or logs tied up, particularly coming from the communities or very small producers. Next. And the system, along the 5 years, we really had to test what was done before, but also as we were going further, we had to do internal field-based testing with the authorities in the regions, with the experts, with the final users. The only way to have a participatory and sustainable system. And we hope that it will keep on going until it's completed and applied. Now it's being applied only by a small number of users. Next one. So this was the first component, which was governance, working particularly on sustainability with the government. This one is more focused on small business and associations of producers, of forest producers. And what the project did was to work with the CITE Forestal. You can see that in the red. The CITES are technological innovation centers that belong to the public sector, they're government, but they are very professional and very technical and very good. And what they do is they outreach a large number of small business and associations. So we work really with them and through them to reach the small business associations. In things like public funding, which is up there, public funding, for instance, we got the government to provide credit for non-timber forest products. This is a bank from the government doing that. We were able to bring competitive funding for business plans for associations that they had to put their own money as well. And we were able to increase public funding in several things to modernize the industry. The technical team of Pro-Bosques also worked together with the partners in forest management, not only in industry, but also in the woods, in sawmill layout, for instance, in the sawmills, blade sharpening to increase productivity, kiln drying of wood, promoting lesser known species. There are many species in the forest Amazon, and some of them are abundant, but not really commercial. So you can actually through the business plan and management plan of the forest, you can actually include relatively new species and add value to them. And in this way, the forest will have more value. And finishing the products, of course. And finally, public procurement was something that we explored at first, and we decided to go all the way into, because we realized that government can be a very, very important and very large and strong buyer of forest products that are of legal origin. And so we work very hard on school furniture, in plans and models, and also the Brazil nuts for school food for breakfast. We'll see the details later on. And also including wood products in the government of Peru online catalog, which is very important. So because any government institution can actually go on this catalog and look at the wood products that are available, and they can be sure that they are of legal origin and they can buy in a way that can really change the local economy of the small producers. And of course, the challenge for the future is to replicate and make it all this sustainable. But these are, I think, milestones that are important for the future. So working with the CITES forestry, it was interesting that they became also a certified agency for forest jobs, not only in chainsaw, for instance, but in other things like measurement of wood lots, how much volume there is. We worked together in sawmill calibration, blade sharpening, and especially to bring in public funds from the government. We work with the Ministry of Finance, we work with the ministries involved, and did projects to bring in and modernize the services that these CITES agencies could provide. You can see the before and after a public investment project. Next, please. This is a special case of AIMPA, a small association of producers, but we, in general, we took them to them and others to exhibit fairs and product fairs to exhibit their new products. These are lesser known species, and so the technical assistance was not only in technical aspects, but access into finance, getting them to access local forest so they can be integrated in their business plan from the forest to the markets. But you can see the solid wood doors from these species that in many cases are very dense, but they had to be standardized, they had to be tested in order to be being produced under a good standard. Next, please. And here it's a legacy of the project, how to get involved in public procurement, or how to get the government involved in buying wood products from the forest. And in this way, they can issue regulations to promote sustainably the use of legal wood in the regions. And they now have plans to scale these regulations to the national level. And the right side is you have to do with what I mentioned, the government of Peru public procurement catalog. There were, when the project ended a few months ago, 32 wood products of legal origin included. and sales, I know that it is much larger than so it's been growing. So I think the message here is that you can actually go into technical assistance, but in order to have an impact, you really have to go into the development of national standards, and you have to go and work together with the proper authorities of different regions, and each region has their own flux of decision making and funding. So you have to go deep all the way to have a result. Next one, please. This is something very interesting because it's the Brazil nut. That's the commercial name. We call it castanha, but it's basically a nut, not only in Brazil, but that's the name it has. And in the south of Peru, we have large number of forest concessions that produce Brazil nuts. And this is included in flour, in school breakfasts for daycares and for children, because it has good properties for nutrition for the children. But it's also the first time that non-timber forest product is used in this magnitude bought by the government and in the standing forest, and you don't have to really to cut the tree. And this has a potential market very large in all the southern part of Peru for school children, and this is mixed with plantain, and this has been tested with the children, and and reach all the standards that feeding the children has at the school level. Next, please. So the public procurement with the regional governments was a key aspect, a very innovative aspect of the project. I don't want to go into the details, but the Ucayali, Loreto, and Madre de Dios, these three regions, they all have now different commitments, and some of them have already contracted and bought furniture or wood products and non-wood products. And so the lesson here is that technical assistance in yellow there had to go all the way into market, doing demand and supply analysis, designed and budgeting of the product. Of course, the market linkages to be able to supply that demand, and due diligence accompanying the local, not only authorities, but the local producers in reach the final success in selling the wood and non-wood products. And the CITES, which is this innovation centers, ended up being the coordinating organization that provides not only technical assistance, but also supervise the completion of the orders. So they have expanded their mandate to something that is very essential to the flux of producing and buying by the government. And the project developed the linkages between the forest sector, the SERFOR, which is the Forest Service, the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Education, who was in charge of the school furniture, and the government of Peru Commercial Promotion Agency, that there are several of them, along with the producer, which is the Ministry of Production, to support the future procurement of the regions, not only these 3 regions, but many other regions in the Amazon, and to use the local products that the local forests are able to produce. So in that way, you really help the local economy to dynamize. Next one, please. And in terms of funding, for the first time, the forest sector was attended or were assisted by something called Pro-Compete, which is competitive funding coming from the government and helping them in their business plans to the associations. And of course, the producers also have to put their own money, but also Agro Peru, which is a bank, and we help them get into non-timber forest products for the first time. They needed some technical assistance to look at the flux of the runs, the economic and finance runs of the production. So they really, at the end, they needed a little push, technical push, and also political push to get into this and assist a large number of producers in the Amazon. And not only they provided credit for non-timber forest products, but there was a commitment to increase that to 14 non-timber forest products in the entire nation, not only in the Amazon. And of course, the new goal was to bring credit for wood products that are the forest sector, especially the wood products, are considered very high risk for the banks. But we have started with non-timber forest products. And of course, the online catalog for public procurement is a milestone, is a key issue. There were 32 products and at least 19 enterprises supported by this. Next, please. And the third component was indigenous empowerment. You can see that we supported the community-based initiatives that in turn they respond to their own life plans, which are basically the official plans for every community. And there were 31 community-based forestry initiatives that not only provide livelihood, but also in terms of self-sustain, but also income generation. We also were able to provide community control and oversight, help them organize their committees, provided the legal support so they become formal, and they were trained and equipped to control and oversight their own forests from illegal logging mainly. But not only logging, but also other, for instance, fishing. So the support was for the entire ecosystem, not only wood, you know. And one thing that is essential is that there was land tenure security, because in every project and any initiative in the Amazon, the complex issue of tenure has to be addressed, and you have to provide or be able to have land tenure security to do almost anything in the land. You have to be certain that you own the land so you can invest there. And finally, we developed an Indigenous Empowerment Index that was tested in the field, but it was actually designed with the help of different experts, the community organizations as well, to really measure the advance that we can have as a project before and after the project. But because we were conscious that we had to have more impact, we got into the National Forest Agenda, working with the national organizations to increase the political support for community-based forest. And that support had to do with better negotiating conditions against the third parties that are usually buying the wood from the communities. And the communities became stronger and more sustainable in terms of control and oversight committees. And the agenda also includes they're asking for public funding to have forest regions, which are actually the official consultants that sign the management plans for community-based forestry. And most times the community have no funds for that. So it can be supported by the government. So this is the indigenous empowerment component. Next, please. These are, you could just go, yeah, just a few words on this is how it looks in Ucayali. It's basically a fishing community, and we work with them adding value to fisheries, but also enriching their forests with precious species. So, you know, in the long term, they will have a richer forest that will supplement their income. Next, please. So fishing is quite important, and the project got involved in studies in which you actually have to basically study where to fish, which species, in what amounts, when, etc. So it can be sustainable, and you can have quotas for different species. But that makes that it's sustainable in time, so you can actually know exactly how much you can fish in order to preserve the resource. Next one. And you can see there the facilities, the boxes for preserving or conserving the freezing of the product, the boats for transportation to the markets. These and of course training that was provided for all these communities. Next. And this is something quite interesting. This is ornamental fish. It was, you know, this is a very highly regarded activity in terms of the potential that has to generate income. But you have to do it in a very technical way, so you can have survival of the fish from the breeding place to the market. And we understand that South Korea is one of the main markets, and this fish, they have very high value on these markets, and it hasn't been explored fully yet to provide this in a more massive way, but it has a potential to be increased very much, and we had very, very good results, and it was an eye-opener for the future in terms of income generation for the fishing communities, in communities that are far, far away from the cities. Next one. Also, part of the income generation activity was producing in a sustainable way, climbing the palm trees for fruit collecting. This is a very highly regarded fruit called aguaje. And before, many communities were actually cutting the palm tree. And now with the climbing mechanisms, you actually have to climb and be trained to do that. But also you can collect in a sustainable way every year your fruits and taking them to the market without affecting the sustainability of the resource. Next one, please. The indigenous communities also complemented their natural resource income generation activities with handicraft. So it was very well received, especially by indigenous women that started to be trained and in fact produced income for their families. And very interesting, we were able not only to train them, but to really connect them to the public CITE for handicraft mechanism. So now they are registered as artisans, and they can actually get also the technical assistance and attention from the public sector in a permanent basis. And of course, I would say the result of women working in helping the income of the family is beyond income. It has to do with self-esteem. It has to do with the engine to produce development at the community level. These are photographs of the control and oversight committees. Very enthusiastic committees in each community. They were basically supervising and having very frequent trips around the community to check if there is anything happening, and if they find any wrongdoing, they will go to the authorities to report it. But they now have the equipment to do that. And this is a celebration of that, an event of donation of boats and radio equipment for community control and oversight for the communities in Loreto, which is the largest region in Peru. You can see then the equipment, not only the boats, but radios and batteries and so on. And also we had with us the U.S. ambassador also participating in this very important event for the communities. Next one, please. Okay. Finally, some very specific lessons learned. A key result of the component 1 is that the National Forest Authority took ownership. It's impossible to do anything sustainably if it's not owned by the leader, which is, of course, the government. And the lessons learned, and I'm talking about the system, the information system, that there were a number of failures in the past because it wasn't, the commitment of the government wasn't fully there. So in terms of lessons learned, the adaptability, we really had to evaluate what had done in the past, and we realized that we had to start from scratch and co-design the system with our counterpart, but also working on the building blocks, as I mentioned, that had to do with a number of issues beyond IT. Evidence and here the lessons learned, the testing all the time, step by step, is critical. And finally, the funding, it has to be permanent, and it really depends on the public, on the ability to get funds from the public sector. And we actually try to train the public sector to get funds from the Ministry of Finance. Next, please. The lessons learned from the competitive is that, well, the CITE network was strengthened, not only individuals, centers, but also they work together and learn from each other. It was, they not only learn from each other, but they plan together and exchanges that really was a synergistic effect. The public procurement in Government of Peru online catalog of forest product was absolutely a key result that we hope that other projects and even the government itself will follow. And we ended up with stronger small producer associations. In terms of adaptability, the importance of working through the cities to reach more producers was very effective. The focus on vulnerable population to work on the inclusion led to a great inclusion of women, indigenous communities, and small producers in the forest value chain. And the focus on the CITES and small and medium-sized producers also strengthened the value chain as a whole. So the value of the forest is higher, and therefore it's the chances of being conserved are also higher. Next one. And finally, the indigenous inclusion, community-based forestry unit, because of the importance of communities in producing land, wood, and our studies showed that most of the wood came from community land. And so community-based forestry unit was officially created within the Forest Service. And the National Indigenous Forestry Agenda was adopted officially, not only by the national level Indigenous Federation, but also by the government, and they sign agreements together. And I mentioned the Indigenous Empowerment Index. So we measured before and after the project, and we saw 53% of competitiveness index or community index in their progress, which is a way of measuring that was adopted also by different organizations. And in terms of adaptability, working, of course, with communities wasn't enough to have an impact. So we adapted to go into the national level, in the National Forestry Agenda. In terms of inclusion, as I mentioned, most of the wood came from the indigenous land. So it requires full participation of all levels of indigenous organization. It has different levels, all the way from international to national, to regional, to municipal or watersheds. So, and community level, of course. And getting the government of Peru to establish this unit, talks about the sustainability of this. Yes. the next one, I think, is the last one. Some final thoughts. There is a real chance to make a difference and impact using existing public funds and structures. Sometimes we're thinking about these international funds, but we have to be aware, at least in Peru, we have high reserves. So there is existing public funds that can be reached. The thing is how to do it. So you have to really work hard in this complex network of institutions. But it's the only way to do it. But it can be done. And there, of course, are ways to add value to the natural forest, as we can see, not only in terms of wood value, but also more species, non-timber forest product, etc. And I haven't talked about carbon credits or ecotourism, which will add to this. The Pro-Bosques team approach was building trust, basically being there and working together and building trust to counterparts. Otherwise, they don't lead the way into the post-project strategy. And we had to hire a lot of specialists because as you advance, you realize that you need more specialization. So you have to go on and hire more specialists. And a permanent coordination at all levels. Being there is the key. I think this is the number one, I think, conclusion. The project had pause and reflect exercises every 6 months, and sometimes inviting external stakeholders. But that was very, very productive in terms of what went wrong, what didn't go well, how could you improve, etc. And political changes, you have to assume them. We had like 7 or 8 different SERFOR directors and ministers and many governors that, well, unfortunately were sometimes even in jail because of corruption. But you have to work with the new authorities all the time and be there. I think longer terms are needed, and for projects, 5 years is still short. And it has to be some evaluation post-project after it's finished. And we did all this without having a unified vision of higher priority. You know, we need a unified vision to scale the priority in the Amazon. We need to come together with what we really want to do as a country with the Amazon. There are conflicting visions within different groups. And I would say that communications and platforms and research and development, being also this for research and development, are key, but we also need to work on the mechanisms in which we research things that are really needed with the proper mechanisms to connect supply and demand for research. And I think the next one, please. This is just a view at night of one of the communities, very beautiful places. And the very last one. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your wonderful speech, Dr. Héctor Cisneros. I'm very expressive with your beautiful pictures and a lot of sharing, especially under the help of the USAID Pro-Bosques. We can find a lot of successful practice in Peru. So does anyone have any questions? Because time is limited, I think.
Sorry, yes, use
I got one question regarding the government procurements. Is it the government procurement can be successful to help the local company and on the wood product? Also, can it help to help more like the private or public to buy the wood, sustainable wood from the sustainable source of the wood?
Yes, in fact, that's one of the requirements, that the wood can be from legal origin. So you have to fulfill a number of requirements for the government to really buy wood. And it's not only the legal origin, but also the fact that you have to have the technical model for, say, if you have a desk and a chair, right? You have to have the module properly designed. You have to have a technical registration, and also it has to have you have to be tested. So, and at the end, as I mentioned, you have to know what buttons to touch, because in every region in Peru, the government works in different ways. It's not all standard. So some in the Loreto region, for instance, the furniture might be bought by the Ministry of Education, and the other one is the regional government. So you have to work with them because they are making decisions all the time, and that's why I mentioned that coordination and being there is so critical.
Is there any like a price premium through the certification? Is there any price premium there?
No, not, at least not for the government buying. I think it's how do I say, it's the government really usually goes for the price, right? The lower price, they try to buy the lower price. And so because of that, they were bringing furniture that were not non-wood. They were metal and melamine, right? So, but they are convinced that that doesn't really help to the local economy. So at the end, in balance, it's better to buy wood.
Okay.
From the local sources. In that way, you dynamize the economy.
But you pay a lot of money to get the forest certified, right? Forest and the wood to certify. So it's adding a cost to the local people or local company.
This is not necessarily FSC certified. This is government certified. This is not a private company. This is the large exporters. This is a number of small producers and associations that what they need is to have the supervision of a body called OSINFOR, which is basically the body that supervises and certifies that you are complying with the forest management plan. So this is what they have.
So it's not the FSC or PFC certified?
No.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question. Like, first, thank you very much for the nice talk. So you introduced like your organization like achieved a very big success for the increase the wood production. But I'm curious, like, is there like a regulation for for the forest replanting after cutting the trees? Now like public like conservation, it's a really hot public concerning. So do you know any of this like regulation exist?
Sorry, in terms of reforestation?
Yeah, replanting, like after
yeah.
cutting the tree. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's in fact there's no need to do that if you have good forest management. What the forest management plan does really is to provide minimum diameter to cut, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you cannot cut very small trees. You cut only the ones that are large enough to being cut. And every species has its minimum diameter to be cut, allowable cut. And so the natural regeneration is what really happens. Now, reforestation is being addressed in areas that were deforested, but not managed. I mean, deforestation, which is different. When you manage a forest, you are not replanting forest. You are basically conserving the forest, so it really stays as a standing forest forever, right? So after 20 or 30 years, you come back, and hopefully the species that you left 20 or 30 years ago will have the diameter enough to be cut, and so it has to be sustainable in that way. And as I mentioned, the CITES Forestal, which is the innovation centers, all the CITES were allowed this past few years only to work in the origin of the value chain. So before they work only in the industry. Now they are going down the line into or up the ladder, down the line into the forest to ensure good forestry management practices. For instance, felling the trees in the right way, using well the skidders, minimum impact, and so on.
So you have like a strategy like selecting cutting or selective cutting.
Yes, well, when you do your forest management plan, you go into the forest, you select the trees, you do your inventory, select the trees that you're going to cut, and you enter in for the first year in this parcel, and then after 20 or 30 or 40 years, depending on your cycle, you come back and cut again. So you in that way, what you are doing is basically leaving the forest, standing forest, even after management plan. And if you go to the best managed concessions in Peru, you would see that you have wildlife, for instance, in parcels that have been already cut. So the biodiversity is conserved.
Wow, yeah. So that's like a really advantage for the rainforest. Like yeah, they grow very well with very high diversity.
Yes, and the thing about non-timber forest products, latex, there are fruits, bark of some species, they can all add value to the forest, and you don't have to fell the trees in many cases.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Can I have another question?
Sure.
So about the indigenous engagement. So like you shared like a lot of cases you work with a local community and to increase their like maybe income and also engagement and also like techniques.
Yes.
Yeah, and I want to ask like, do you have any like conflicts with the local communities? I think this can be also another case.
Oh yes, so there are. Well, you have to respect the culture, and when there are failures of or misunderstanding is because you haven't really integrated, and so you have to be patient, and you have to be there. Especially with indigenous communities, I think the trust building is key, because if they don't trust you, they question you, and at the end they may even expel you from the community. But as long as you are transparent, honest, and really work with them, things should go well. The other thing that is important with the communities is that you work not only at the community level, but at the watershed level. They have a federation of communities. They have a leader. That leader wants to know what's going on in their communities. And then beyond that federation, there are regional. And beyond that regional, on top of that, are the national. And these are different ethnic groups. And sometimes there are conflicts between them. But in general, they get along very well because they are unified in one or two bodies nationally. But you have to really get the feedback of all the different levels, so you ensure that there's the information flux goes up and down, and nobody is missing anything.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for your presentation and your answers.
Pleasure.
I think time is because of the time, so I want to say we will finish the meeting. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day,
Thank
everyone.
you. Have a
you.
nice day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.